But if you've actually read the standard for this thing, it's just not going to scale. There's a lot of overhead. I mean, there's a lot of parsing involved. I mean, why do we have to have standards that are human readable for computers to process? Which that was actually a big issue for the guy I worked for at Microsoft. He wasn't a big fan of XML either for that reason, is because he was giving up all the efficiencies of binary for text. And so, that's great for Intel, but are we really taking a step forward or backward? But in particular with XMPP and Jabber, they basically formed the whole conversation as a long-running, open-ended XML document, right? Which is a little weird to begin with. But you actually send things over. You have to parse entire bits of XML just to know what's going on. There's a lot of extra encoding and so on. I mean, it's big because it's XML, right? That's really the reason. But I don't like it. In fact, I like the SIP a little bit better because at least it goes back to the good old, stalwarts of IETF and RFC as far as MIME and SMTP and HTTP and so on. And it's a lot simpler. Certainly from a processing point of view, it's easier. We all know it. It's header, colon, variables, it's bodies. It's the same HTTP codes. We're all familiar with it. We don't have to learn anything new. And the better thing is you can separate control from data. And that's very hard to do with the way they define XMPP. Now, one of the big problems with all these standards is they really haven't even addressed security. They've made a passing, waving hand at it, and that's going to be the big problem. Is as usual, security is being pushed off onto the side. But having done security for the last decade, I can tell you that it's very hard to add security onto something once it's already there. You have to build it in from the bottom. And if I pitch my company a little bit, I mean, it's really that's maybe the thing that we do differently. Is we started with security and go from there. Because if you start from the beginning, then you can make it so users don't even know it's there, and you can get better security than otherwise. So, but we'll come back to that security part a little bit later. So that's the standards part. Now, interoperability kind of is going to come out of standards, as is kind of obvious. But the good news is, there's some products out there that give you the illusion of interoperability. For example, this product called Trillion, which is a client, and it can it looks like you're connected to all the different IM systems through a single client. So it gives you the illusion that things are working together. But it really isn't. We're still quite a distance away from the interoperability that we expect, which I think we've set the standard with email. We know that if you have an email address, I can send you email, end of story, right? I mean, that's it. You need an email address, I can send you email. We're very far away from that with IM. We wouldn't even know where to begin. And it's going to be dependent on standards. Even if we emerge and we have two of these standards, I mean, if your system's talking XMPP and mine's talking SIP, we're still not going to be able to talk to each other. So at some point, to really get the interoperability that we expect to have in email, something's going to have to give. And right now, these two groups are pretty far apart. I mean, SIP is a very different looking beast than XMPP. So, I just don't know what's going to happen there. Now, here's the ugly part. IM is a weird thing because it was born really in the commercial world. I mean, it was really born I actually was going to dig up the name. Maybe somebody knows what AOL used to be called in 1985 before it was called AOL.
Not American Online.
No, it was like GNN. I never even heard of it. I don't remember what it was. I just read a magazine. I put the magazine down. Next thing I know, there's 1,000 magazines. I don't remember which one I picked it up in. So, but AOL claims to have invented, or at least the person who wrote this article claims that AOL at least invented it commercially back in '85. But of course, if you were going to college before that, I'm sure we were all using IM-like things, as we all know, way back before 1985. I didn't just lose this hair yesterday.
Talk.
Yes, talk. Exactly, among others, right? Phone on the VAX, VMS, right? Which, of course, now everyone claims that they have patents over this stuff that we've been doing for 25, 30 years. But that's a whole other talk I can give. So what's the real incentive for their interoperability? I mean, AOL for a long time, did not want to open up their community of users. I mean, why should they? They got 100 million of them, and they were all locked in. And it took the government to kind of force them to do something, and they recently even backed off on that. We know Microsoft tried to break in, and that didn't work, which is kind of funny for Microsoft to be trying to break into somebody else's thing. But You know, it's like they're really, it's a business issue, unfortunately. Whereas a lot of other, things that we've developed over the internet have been developed in academia and, open source and so on. And there's just been the natural incentive of the developers to make it work. This one is being held up, as it were, by these very large companies. And the weird thing is it's the presence, mostly. Because presence is this online active server that has to be running for it to be useful. And where is that going to run? Who's going to own that? Then there's a lot of information that's going in and out of those servers. So who's going to pay for all that bandwidth? Right now, public IM is free, and people want public IM to remain free, but somebody's got to pay for it. It's not really free, and I think that's our biggest issue to getting to true interoperability. Because even if we agree on standards, say SIP or whatever wins out, AOL, Yahoo, and Microsoft still have to go and implement it, and they still have to open up their servers to allow other IM systems to interoperate with it. So there's still a long way to go, and I think that's going to be a big issue. But again, that's my opinion. Let's move to productivity. We'll start this time with the ugly. Limited to teenagers. This is what was happening back in 1985, I guess. I was a teenager in 1985. That's what they're. In fact, up until extremely recently, IM was really about was not really being used in the workplace, and when it was really to talk to the friends, family, and teenagers. So there was an issue about is this getting in the way? Is this a productivity tool, or is this really causing problems? I talked to a bunch of CIOs in the financial vertical market, whatever, in May of, I guess that was 2001. Yes, maybe 2002. I can't remember. And at the time, they were worried about how do we stop this thing. How do we turn this thing off? People are downloading it. We don't know what's going on. We don't know if they're using it for good or bad. We have no idea what's going on. But more importantly, the common perception was that IM equaled, spreading gossip. It was talking to family. It was like, when are we going to have dinner? Hey, or actually, it was even worse. It was, let's talk about the boss, because they don't, we can all sit in our cubes and laugh, and instead of standing around the water cooler, so it's not so obvious that we're talking about the boss. It even was used potentially for bad, like sexual harassment was happening, and companies were becoming liable for these things, because public IM, you could just blast, I guess, windows up on people's workstations without them asking, or without you asking them, or them saying yes, and you could say whatever you want, and it was already too late. So these were issues. That was the perception. It was, these things are bad. But studies have shown, and people have been doing studies, that in the workplace at least, it's actually being used to get real work done. It really is becoming a productivity tool. And people are now saying, I can't get along without this thing. We now have people going through college. I just heard this a couple weeks ago. I was at a financial summit, and we were sitting around a table, and as usual, we opened it up, and nobody had anything to say. But luckily, there was this a young woman. She had probably just gotten out of college, and she said, I'm working on the trading floor or something like that. Maybe not a trading floor, but in a little group. And she went through college on IM. I mean, they did everything in college at IM. And when she went there, her boss said, you cannot use IM. No IM. No IM for you. Yeah, that's it. No IM.
Withdrawal.
So, and she didn't know what to do. I mean, she's like, if I gave my kid a video cassette, I had no idea what to do with that thing. And it was the same thing. They didn't know what to do without IM. And she was trying to convince the boss that this was not a bad thing, this was a good thing, and so on. So there's the misconception is starting to get better that IM in the workplace is actually a good thing. I for one, really never used it before 2 years ago, or maybe less. And now I use it all the time. A lot of that is a lot of people I work with are all over the country. And that's by far, the easiest thing to do. Especially when you're at home on a weekend and you find that one of your peers is working and he's in New York and he's stuck and he can just send you a message and he doesn't, you don't bother. It's different than you call somebody on the phone. You don't want to bother them at home by ringing the phone. But setting up an IM and say, are you available? Could you help me? That's a whole different thing. And that's what's starting to happen in the workplace. And I'm sure people use it. I'm sure you probably are not sitting there just chatting. You're actually getting work done. But the study also showed that a lot of these conversations are really using IM as a starting point to get the conversation onto another medium. Because a lot of times just doing it in text just isn't sufficient for a lot of these people. So they're saying, when can I arrange to have a phone call? When can we have a video conference? Or even when can we get together in person? So a fairly high percentage of this study that I'm, one particular study anyway, that I'm talking about was the conversations were setting up other conversations. So I think the good news is IM in the workplace is actually becoming a good thing, and in fact it's becoming a necessity. But let's talk about security. Well, I mean, IM systems really punted completely on security, but why would they care? I mean, their audience was teenagers, right? There was no security issues there. They didn't care, about spam as it relates to IM, right?
Well,
which is I can just put up messages.
With teenagers there are security issues if you talk about some of the less pleasant participants in our society. Don't they have to worry about that?
Well, does who have to worry about that?
AOL is not responsible for matching up 15-year-old girls with 50-year-old guys?
No.
Really?
Well, but even if they were, I mean, how would they prevent that? I mean, they would have to know very strongly who each person was that was logged onto their system. I mean, a lot of these public IM systems are anonymous. I mean, you can get any email address on any of these systems, right? I mean, you don't ever have to prove who you are.
Right.
If you can type, and apparently if you have a reasonable vision, to type, look at the blurry picture and say what it is, you can get an email address nowadays. But when I talk about security here, it's the security of the conversation. It's knowing who you're talking to. It's knowing that nobody else can see that. It's knowing that what I type is what you see. And it's knowing that somebody, who cares is recording this because they might have to show it in court later on or to a regulatory agency. So the public IM systems don't have it, and frankly, they don't really need to. They don't really see the point. But what sometimes is worse is when you think you have security and it's not really there. And this kind of comes back to what I was saying before, where some people equate security with encryption. And this is where one of these yellow flags come up. If a vendor comes to you and says, or if you ask, well, what's your security, tell me about your security, and they go, oh, well, we use SSL. And that's usually the end of it. They don't even know where to go after that. I mean, they're just, what? You mean and? Didn't I answer your question? I mean, a lot of people, a lot of vendors actually believe that SSL is security. I mean, SSL at best will encrypt data between 2 points, but that's it. So if you ever hear that, you almost want to go run screaming from the room. If you're really in the market for enterprise class systems where security is an issue, SSL by itself doesn't do it. And actually, I think I come back to this later, but even if they have SSL and they have all the other stuff, SSL is also a little bit of a warning because there's certain scalability issues about it because of the way SSL just inherently works. And so you still want to be careful. Even if they have all the other stuff, SSL still, it tells me anyway that maybe it was kind of a little bit of an afterthought. This is one of those things, we just threw it in at the end kind of thing. And again, because security is often bolted on to after the fact, you get these really non-scalable approaches to the problem. Again, SSL is a good example. If I have more of like a hub and spoke kind of architecture, and I'm using SSL, and I have to go first to the hub and then to here, well, that's